The spotlight has once again turned to Ireland following a dramatic and hard-fought 33-31 victory over the Wallabies. But instead of celebrating an impressive attacking display, much of the post-match discussion has centered on the team's defensive struggles. While the result ensured Andy Farrell's side opened their campaign with an important win, the performance left plenty of questions unanswered, especially when it came to the defensive organization that has long been considered one of Ireland's greatest strengths. Those concerns have now been amplified by one of the country's greatest ever players, Brian O'Driscoll, who believes there is a deeper issue affecting several members of the national squad. Speaking after the thrilling contest, the legendary former captain suggested that the defensive philosophy introduced by Jacques Nienaber at Leinster may still be influencing players when they return to international rugby with Ireland, creating confusion during crucial moments against top opposition. According to O'Driscoll, the problem is not about effort or commitment but rather about transitioning between two very different defensive systems, something he believes was clearly exposed during the encounter with the Wallabies. The opening half of the match was far from comfortable for Ireland as Australia repeatedly found space through intelligent attacking patterns, quick passing, and well-executed support lines. The visitors punished defensive hesitation and raced to 24 first-half points, placing enormous pressure on Andy Farrell's side. Although Ireland eventually recovered to claim a narrow victory, the defensive lapses throughout the opening 40 minutes have become the biggest talking point. Brian O'Driscoll argued that many of those mistakes were linked to players instinctively reacting according to habits developed under Jacques Nienaber's aggressive blitz defense at Leinster rather than following the slightly different defensive principles employed by Ireland. That distinction may appear minor to casual supporters, but at elite international level, even the smallest misunderstanding can open massive gaps for world-class attackers to exploit. One of the defining moments of the contest arrived when Hugo Keenan produced what many observers described as the tackle of the match. Australia's Joseph Suaalii looked destined to score after another defensive breakdown left open space on the outside, yet Keenan somehow tracked back and delivered a remarkable try-saving tackle that completely changed the momentum of the game. O'Driscoll described the intervention as absolutely crucial, explaining that had Suaalii crossed the line, Australia could have extended their advantage to an almost unassailable margin before halftime. Instead, the defensive heroics of Hugo Keenan kept Ireland alive, allowing them to score before the break and return to the dressing room believing a comeback was still possible. That single tackle may ultimately have defined the outcome, but according to O'Driscoll, it should never have been necessary in the first place because the defensive structure had already broken down long before Suaalii received the ball. The legendary center pointed directly to communication and decision-making as key areas that require immediate improvement before the next challenge. Explaining his concerns, Brian O'Driscoll highlighted the way players are conditioned under Jacques Nienaber's defensive philosophy. At Leinster, defenders are encouraged to fly out of the line aggressively, closing down attackers before they have time to make decisions. When executed perfectly, the system suffocates opposition attacks and forces mistakes. However, the success of that approach depends entirely on every defender moving together with absolute precision. If even one player hesitates or fails to follow the line speed, huge spaces immediately appear on the outside. O'Driscoll believes many Leinster players have spent years perfecting that aggressive style, making it second nature whenever they step onto a rugby field. The challenge comes when they return to Ireland, where defensive responsibilities differ slightly and timing becomes equally important. Those instinctive reactions, developed through years of repetition under Nienaber, cannot simply disappear overnight. They remain deeply ingrained, and according to O'Driscoll, that creates moments of uncertainty during test matches. He also stressed that the issue was not limited exclusively to Leinster representatives. During the match, Ulster's Stuart McCloskey was also seen rushing out of the defensive line, leaving dangerous gaps behind him. O'Driscoll explained that defenders who shoot out of the line must either stop the ball carrier or force play back towards supporting defenders. Against the Wallabies, however, Australia repeatedly anticipated those aggressive movements. Rather than panicking, they calmly moved the ball behind the rushing defenders using clever loop plays and well-timed passing combinations. Sometimes they released the short runner, while at other moments they shifted the ball out the back, stretching Ireland's defense and exposing weaknesses that rarely appeared during previous campaigns. The ability of the Wallabies to vary their attack prevented Ireland from settling into any consistent defensive rhythm. Instead of dictating the contest, Ireland found themselves reacting, scrambling, and relying on individual brilliance to prevent further tries. For Brian O'Driscoll, that sequence perfectly illustrated why defensive cohesion remains such an important talking point. He acknowledged that learning different systems at club and international level is one of the modern challenges facing professional rugby players. With elite coaches introducing unique tactical philosophies across different competitions, players are increasingly required to switch approaches within days. While the best professionals are capable of making those adjustments, O'Driscoll suggested that repeated exposure to one demanding system inevitably shapes instinctive decision-making. That is why he sympathized with the players despite criticizing aspects of the overall performance. In his view, they are attempting to adapt between two complex defensive structures while competing against some of the best attacking teams in world rugby. It is a difficult balancing act, and one that can only be solved through continued training, clearer communication, and greater understanding between teammates. Despite the criticism, O'Driscoll was careful not to dismiss the significance of Ireland's victory. As Ireland prepares for its next challenge against Japan, attention is naturally turning toward how quickly the squad can respond to the defensive concerns that emerged in the opening match. Winning is always the primary objective at international level, but every victory also provides valuable lessons, and the coaching group led by Andy Farrell will know there is significant room for improvement. Modern Test rugby leaves little margin for error, and defensive systems are often the difference between lifting trophies and falling short against elite opposition. That is why the conversation surrounding Jacques Nienaber's influence has become one of the biggest talking points in Irish rugby. His reputation as one of the game's leading defensive minds is well established after helping guide the Springboks to major international success, and his methods have already made a noticeable impact at Leinster. However, moving between club and international environments is rarely straightforward. Players spend months developing habits within one system before switching to another, and those small adjustments can become decisive when facing teams capable of exploiting every weakness. Former captain Brian O'Driscoll believes the solution is not to abandon aggression, but to ensure every player shares the same understanding of their role in the defensive line. Consistency, communication, and trust will be essential if Ireland is to become the complete side that many believe it can be. The encouraging sign is that the problems identified after the victory over the Wallabies are correctable. Unlike issues involving fitness or talent, defensive cohesion can improve through repetition, video analysis, and time spent together on the training field. That should give supporters confidence as the tournament progresses. Meanwhile, Japan will arrive with its own ambitions, knowing that attacking with speed and precision has long been a hallmark of its rugby identity. If Ireland can tighten its defensive structure while maintaining the attacking quality shown during its comeback, the next performance could offer a much clearer picture of the team's true potential. For the players, the focus will remain firmly on execution rather than outside criticism. International rugby demands constant adaptation, and every squad experiences periods where systems evolve and new combinations are tested. The key question now is how quickly Ireland can translate those lessons into improved performances. A convincing display against Japan would not erase every concern, but it would demonstrate that the squad is capable of learning rapidly from its mistakes and building momentum as the competition continues.